Hello everyone. We are just a little bit early, but this way I can throw out the link everywhere. We're live. Come join us. Good to see you everyone who is swinging in. Thank you very much for taking some time out of your Sunday to say hello. There we go. Let's throw that there. We're live. Come join. Bam, there's that. And we'll throw in another one over in the Discord. Live. Bam. Okay. Good to see you, everyone. My name is Robbie Howell. It is awesome to have you guys here. Thanks again for taking time out of your busy Mondays, or Sundays rather, to come and join me here. Thank you so much for taking the time. We have some interesting topics to go over that there's a mixed bag today. There's going to be some cool stuff, and there's going to be some stuff that's a bit of a bummer. But that is just the way that things go. I've adjusted my desk setup. I have my mic right here at this point. You may have noticed in the last video. And I also have a second monitor. So if I'm looking like this, that means I'm looking at you guys over in chat. Of course, we are going to have our interview a little later today, or a little later during the stream. It's going to be an interview with a games industry veteran within the strategy game genre, who will hopefully be able to give us a little bit more of a personal kind of on-the-ground take of what is exactly going on in the industry and what exactly the layoffs are about. We'll see. I obviously won't press him too hard. I don't want to be rude or over-personal. But we will see what he ends up being willing to share. Hello, good to see you all. There we go. We got Robert Lay, we got Crossel, we got Diaborn, we got Tyranno. Awesome. It's great to see you all. Thank you so much for joining. Before we begin, I guess we'll take a couple minutes as per usual to let people filter in. If you all have any topics or questions for me or random things that come to mind from like past videos or whatever the hell, fire away. I'd love to take the moment to yap with you guys before we dive into the other topics. Hello, hello. Good to see you, Matt. Or good to see you. Well, I'll use your handle, Matt. Another thing of note that you guys may have noticed is that I'm finally catching up with some of my backlog. That North American Civilizations collab I put out was like 6 months in the making. And we have another big project that is almost a year in the making that is going to be coming out next month. That is the goal at the very least. It's weird with all layoffs. Microsoft will replace with AI. That does seem to be part of it. There's like a strong pivot towards AI, and from like an economics and or rather like an investment perspective, what they're trying to do is they're trying to, from what I can guess, try to reassure shareholders, because it is true that oftentimes layoffs make number go up, and missing a lot of the bigger picture. That is probably the overarching reason why, because, AI is a hot new trend and layoffs tend to be something investors like to see. And that doesn't necessarily mean they're good. And in this case, probably they are going to be very bad. I'm guessing they're going to be quite a brain drain and they're going to lose a lot of talent. But we will see. We'll go into detail, and for all I know, I could be wildly off base on this. I'm speculating Tyranno says, I'm speculating the layoffs is them integrating Chronicles in more with the game so they can save on designers by using their main ones instead. Sounds legit. I'm not entirely sure on that, as with all these other things. It seems like a plausible approach to how this has happened. Obviously, on our end, the layoffs seem to have become most kind of publicly started with Alkalim being cut, but at the same time, that is obviously like a relatively minor shot across the bow in the grand scheme of all of the layoffs that are hitting the industry. Not to say that it was deserved. I love Alkalim. Alkalim does great work, and I was very bummed to see him let go. But at the same time, we also want to make sure that we don't turn Alkalim into like a totem pole or like a war banner, I guess is a good word for it. Something that people rally around because I don't know if Alkalim wants that or would be comfortable with that, frankly. Robert Lay says Wizard of the Coast / Hasbro have been open with replacing actual artists and designers with AI. Gross. Yeah, at some point, I would love to bitch and moan about Magic the Gathering with you guys. I don't know how much interest there'd be. I should do a poll about that. Let me put that down in my notes. I got to do a poll asking you guys whether you want to hear me bitch and moan about Magic the Gathering. Because that's a topic I can bitch and moan about all frickin' day. MTG. Oh, awesome. Pardon me. Just have my little notebook off to the side. Don't accept anything else from Hasbro. Yeah, it's gross. Hi, Quagsire. It's good to see you. Alkalim is a good designer. Love his Carthage for AoE too. Absolutely. Using prompts to randomize civs. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. It's totally fine. It's different when you're trying to put something out as a creative product. You know what I mean? Given what I've been doing recently with trying to put out my own creative product, this is something that's on the forefront of my mind. And speaking of which, as a brief, entirely shameful plug, if you guys have any interest whatsoever in tabletop role-playing games, please give a quick look to my game Enclave. I'll stick it on the screen. This game is something I've been working on for a very long time. It matters quite a lot to me, and is the reason I can call myself a game designer. So if you have any interest whatsoever in TTRPGs, please take a look at the pre-launch page. I just threw it over into chat, and I would love your support if it's something that you're at all interested in. Anyways, shameless plug out of the way. Still bummed over the Mad Matt says still bummed over the canceled DLC for AoE 3, and that has really turned me off of the series for now. Yeah, completely understandable and for good reason. But that said, given that I am still kind of nominally at least an Age of Empires channel, let us nominally talk about Age of Empires. They had a patch that came out, didn't it? Okay, we're diving into the topics more properly. But if you guys have thoughts in chat or other topics you want to see me cover, toss it out there. I'm going to be pretty quick about this because, to be honest, patch notes aren't something I'm really all that interested in, but there's a couple of cool things that have implications for my Total Overhaul series, as well as things that I think could be kind of relevant for discussing strategy games as a whole, which I think are pretty interesting. For one, all this crap, blah-de-blah-de-blah, I'm sure it's important, but I really could not care less. Well, I could, but I just don't understand enough to discuss, and I think it's probably kind of boring. Okay, this one is another interesting thing. So one of the things that they've been talking about a lot is pathfinding. And I've been thinking a lot myself about how you can make units move and what is the best way to optimize like a movement engine in a strategy game. And something like this, the thing where with control right click, units can prioritize moving to the commanded location over assembling into formation. That's cool. I actually really like that. I really love, even though I'm the sort of person who really likes to prioritize accessibility and things of that nature, I love advanced movement. It's part of the reason I threw in that poll recently about fighting games. Because as long as advanced movement is optional, and it isn't such a vast barrier to entry that it is impossible to be competitive without it, I think it's great. And this is one of those things where, like, yeah, I'm sure everyone who wants to take the game more seriously will do it, but it's not like the game is impossible or less fun without it. So yeah, advanced movement, pretty cool. I kind of like it. Whole bunch of stuff. I'm sure a lot of this is quite relevant. Big note on pathfinding. Yeah, this is a rough one. I know that a lot of the stuff I've talked about in Total Overhaul always has like kind of the Damocles sword of pathfinding looming over its head. So I am thinking about it. I just don't have the foggiest of how to approach it myself. I'm sure down the line this will be something we need to tackle in some way. What is this little... Oh, there's a little... I see. I was like, why are they putting camera emojis? Oh, there's a video. That's why. That makes sense. That's cool. I like that. Let's see. Balance changes. Again, I'm sure there's a bunch of stuff here that is really relevant. You guys saw the Spirit of the Law video. I'm not diving into all the, like, every single balance change. I want to focus on the stuff that's, like, topical and relevant to my channel. For example... I mean, that's kind of funny. They weren't affected by camel unit bonuses. That's whatever. Sure, that's great. What was the thing that I found that I thought was cool and wanted to talk about? Ah, yes, of course. We have the wild animal changes. This was something that I did mention briefly in a poll, and I've had a bunch of people say to me, "Oh, we gotta do it. We gotta do it. Like, bring it into a total overhaul." Yes, completely agree. We are going to be doing a big old topic on wild animals in total overhaul. However, I want to kind of take it a piece at a time, and I'm planning on doing an episode talking about neutral map features, so to speak, like critters and the like, a little ways down the line, especially because that is going to be the time that I also start talking about another widely requested change, which will be neutral factions on the map. Neutral villages, bandits, raiders, that sort of thing. And I will say, by the way, a lot of people, there's a lot of mixed opinions on like whether it's good to have the animals all have their own kind of unique thing. I kind of wish it had been this way from the beginning, because I think if it had been this way from the beginning, people would not have a single problem with it. But given that it's one of those changes that is unwelcome now because it's a big departure from the norm. And then another one, the Chronicles changes. This, I'll be honest, I was surprised. The fact that they're doing balance changes for this is kind of hilarious, but I've seen a lot of people speculate that this means they're probably going to be bringing the Chronicle civs into the ladder and stuff like that, which would be a choice. I mean, I'd be curious to see how it worked. We kind of do already have the 3K civilizations breaking that ground in that regard. So I find myself not caring enough to strongly feel one way or another. I kind of stopped caring in this regard a little while ago, but whatever. You do you, my friendos. New random maps, yeah. Random map changes, good lord, there's a lot of these. Full credit to the team for putting all this cool stuff in. This sounds great. However, this was the one. The new types of placeholder objects for random maps, but also new type of actual huntable animals and similar and unpushable huntable animals. Yeah. I really like the addition of things like hares to the game, but also the fact that you can now get fur from killing units, from killing hunt is cool. I wish it could be harvested more properly, but still quite good. This is something that, again, is going to be playing a role in Total Overhaul. The next episode I have talking about resources will probably be touching upon this, but I may leave it for like the neutral feature thing down the line. And then modding. Yeah. Let's see about this one. This one is actually kind of cool. The amount of tech tree preview categories is no longer limited to a hard-coded amount. That's kind of sick. I actually kind of dig that. History screen data is no longer hard-coded. That's also good. Train limit functionality can also be used for limiting the construction of buildings. Great. These are the reason I'm focusing on this, by the way, is because this is the sort of thing that can actually change total overhaul implications. Stingers to be applied by projectile type units. That's really good, actually. I don't know if this is just a specific stinger, though. Maybe I'm missing some obvious stuff. Civilization name override. Oh, God, that's probably important, but I don't know. Oh, yes, and trade units of the process of trading can now hold multiple resource types. Great. Slowly but surely. Obviously, it doesn't address the real problem, which is the civ cap, nor does it give people easier tools and accessibility to actually implementing the mods, nor does it prevent mods from breaking into a million pieces at the slightest change to the game. These will all be topics that I plan on discussing in a upcoming video. You may have seen me in Discord recently kind of asking modders and creators to give their thoughts on what they would like to see done differently in this regard and what would help their job as modders be easier. Because I think that modding is the lifeblood of any strategy game. I've said that since I started this channel, and I still believe it. And so any step the game can take to make modders have an easier time, that is a good idea in my eyes, at the very least. All right, before we move on to the next topic, let's take a quick look over at the chat. Quagsire says, I feel like Microsoft bit off a bit more they can chew by buying a lot of developers and publishers for billions of dollars. They can't make back swiftly. Yes, that is very true. Microsoft acquired way too many studios and is just completely squandering their potential. The same goes for, I'm pretty sure Activision Blizzard did the same thing, and a bunch of other big studios did so as well. Just like buying talent and then letting them fester. That's gross. Well, hopefully it bites them in the ass financially so that they don't do it again. Fingers crossed. Let's see. Prox says, featuring AOE AI version of top AOE 2 players. That's kind of cool. Tomash says, hello, it is me, not a paid actor, here to say that Enclave is indeed kind of cool. Fully agree with you, not a paid actor. Thank you very much. Keep an eye on your mail for that totally not a check that I'm sending to you. Robert Lay says, I don't have that many issues with pathfinding. Elite gamers complain about it when they lose. Yeah, I think it's one of those things that you don't really notice unless you're playing at like the turbo sweaty level. But if you're at like the mid sweaty level, it's a great scapegoat for why you lost. Goodness gracious. Yeah, Hero Romance VN. That's funny. Keaton shouldn't even have that units. Keaton gets, yeah, completely agree. Critters mentioned. Oh yeah, we're gonna have a whole episode dedicated to critters. Beware the Kitangas, they are without honor. Indeed. When neutral markets were implemented, I wish for neutral villagers focus on capturing for resources. Yeah, I think that would be sick. They made the button to switch to Chronicle civilizations way more obvious in this patch as well. It's likely they will get their own mode. Yeah, that could be cool. I mean, well, we'll see how much value ends up being presented, because as you guys may remember from my Chronicles video, my concern with it is it was not sufficient value for the price. Let's see. Hello, folks. Hello, Boo Boo. It's good to see you. Modding kept AoE 2 alive. Absolutely. Activision was bought by Microsoft. Jesus Christ. Okay. Anyways, all that stuff out of the way. We will get back to video game industry stuff shortly. But before then, next topic. This one. This was brought to my attention in the Discord. Ancient Sumerian tablet reveals forgotten myth of storm god Ishkur's captivity in the netherworld. New Sumerian myth just dropped. Wow, that's so cool. I love Sumerian myth, having done a what was it, 2-hour video? Yeah, there it is. It's an hour and 45-minute long video on the topic. And this myth actually has implications to change my build. Not in like a massive way, but in a somewhat way. To that end, I wanted to briefly review it with you guys because I thought it was super duper cool. And kind of mention how it might change the build that I made. So, I'll briefly narrate. An old Sumerian myth that has been forgotten for centuries has resurfaced once again according to a study published by Dr. Jaina Matuzak in the journal Iraq. The tablet upon which the myth is inscribed is Ni 12501 and dates back to around 2400 BCE during the early dynastic Ilb. What is that? Or is that Il? Oh, no, that's definitely Roman numerals. 3B, period. It was discovered. Look at him. Look at that handsome boy. It was discovered in Nippur in the 19th century. While incomplete, the text is remarkable in featuring a narrative with the Sumerian storm god Ishkur, who is not very commonly mentioned, by the way. Better known for his role in bringing rain, who was captured and taken to the netherworld of, or Kur. There's actually a bunch of names for the netherworld, but that's one of them. His fate, as offered here, becomes the object of a divine rescue mission, led not by a powerful god, but by the cunning figure of the fox. It's quite rare that Sumerian myth kind of mythologizes an animal. In fact, I don't know if I can name another one off the top of my head. Not like a generic animal. Obviously, you have the bull of heaven, but that's the of heaven part doing the heavy lifting, right? Oh yes, and of course, this is not Ishkur. This is a related god. This is Adad, being carried by Assyrians. You can tell by the helmets. And Adad is likely kind of a derivative or a relative of Ishkur. Now, other things of note about this is that you can look up like a better summary elsewhere, but the basic idea is that like Ishkur is captured, there's a drought, and the gods have to like figure out, all right, how are we going to save Ishkur? And like the fox offers itself, the animal, the fox, as the way to save his life. And bring him back to the world so that drought is banished and he can bring rain again. Which is, again, wildly atypical for Sumerian myth. Now, it's so atypical, there's part of me that feels like it might be like a misattribution or a mistranslation. Maybe something like of a related culture or a later culture rather than Sumerian and like late Sumerian myth by itself. But it could also just be something that was unprecedented up until this point, which would be very exciting and very cool. And it makes me think that on my build, the Ishkur god could maybe have like, I don't want to replace his god power. I like his god power, but maybe could have like a tech where it referenced the fox rescuing him in some way. I don't know. What do you guys think? I think that would be kind of sick. But either way, it's not common that we have a new myth that just is made publicly available that we can kind of draw ideas from. So for me, this was wildly exciting. Hopefully for you, it was reasonably exciting as well. Before we go on to our next step, taking a look at chat. If it goes downhill, to quote Tamerlane, send forth the flaming camels. Indeed. Got a Scarper, enjoy the stream. Thank you, Tyranno. Good to see you. There were foxes in Sumer. I was surprised by that too. It could be like a translation of like another small local canid, right? But I think there might be. Let me double check actually. Well, I don't know if were foxes native to Sumer is like a useful search term. let me just double check, at least in terms of now. Are foxes native to Iraq? Yes, there is the Arabian red fox. Little guy. Here, I'll stick him on the screen. There he is. It's a critter. And presumably this has been there for a little while. And Iraq. Yeah. It has also been reported from Israel. Yeah, so there are foxes around there, presumably, but the fact that we once again have the fox as a sly kind of unexpected maybe hero / maybe even a little anti-hero. It's just wild how recurrent that particular trope is throughout world history. I have to admit, I know next to nothing about Sumerian mythos aside from the basics. It's always nice to learn. Yeah, I mean, it's a wild one. Sumerian myth is incredibly fun, and it took me a million years to make that video because it was just so much to learn. Red foxes, hello, Ace. Golden jackal, maybe? Yeah, Arabian red foxes kind of look like European. Looks like a red fox merged with a fennec fox. Yeah, pretty much that. They have the big funny ears. Okay, next thing before we go into more layoff talk is this build of the month. I'm going to adjust my window briefly so you guys can better see. And I'm going to hit presenter view. Bam! This is a rebuild of the Franks by the user Godflesh. This was quite a cool one. It was actually submitted to me about a month ago, but I've really wanted to revisit it and take a look at it because obviously, as you guys know, I think that it's dumb that the current Frank civilization crams, 1,200 years of history into a single civilization. And I've long wanted to split the Franks into a more proper Franks and a later French. And I thought this build did like a pretty good job of it. So like to quickly scroll through, I won't do the entire thing, but I will. Here, let me make myself scarce. Bam, so that you can see. So a good summary, why to change the Franks, pretty much what you would see me say on my channel. The addition of an axeman with a bonus against infantry. The only thing I would change here is I would include spearmen. If you've ever played Fire Emblem, you know that axes beat spears. But additionally, a bunch of new technologies regarding monastery, regarding infantry, similar. There's some ones I really like here. Monastic labor has monks generating food and wood that scale with relics garrisoned. Scriptoriums, which makes monasteries increase the working speed of universities in their vicinity. I think this one's a little weak, but I really like the idea. Just War, land units acquire more conversion resistance and deal more damage against enemy monks, as well as enemy monasteries and town centers. Tight, I think it's a little on the expensive side, but it's fun. And definitely makes sense. And Kite Shield. Cavalry, swordsmen, axemen get +1 pierce armor and receive -2 damage from spearmen. Cool. Yeah, tight, cool ideas. Have this awesome looking shield. Oh, that looks cool as well. And the major summary is, first of all, they still have the discount, or they don't get free farm upgrades. They get a discount and can plant forage bushes, which is something people have talked about a lot. Stables and barracks work faster. Conscription available earlier. Coinage and caravan more effective. This one's kind of scary to me. Universities and monasteries cost less wood and stone. This is kind of a funky one. Let me pull up the speaker notes. Maybe there was something mentioned as to what that means. I don't know what this would mean. Maybe there's like an amendment where they cost like have a stone cost or something in this idea. Unique technologies. We'll get to, I guess, in a moment. But the team bonus, monasteries and universities are built faster. Nice. Bonus justifications, a nice, like, sweeping summary of them. Charlemagne himself was fond of spearmint. I had no idea. Let's see. I think that, like, most of the bonuses are pretty justified. I understand the backing behind them, even though I think the caravan coinage one is pretty scary. They keep the throwing axemen. The amendment being, I would like them to be faster when throwing axes. Yeah. Because I got rid of the bearded axe technology, the base unit should have 4 range, the elite should have 5. Yeah. And in terms of aesthetic and historicity, the axes they should throw should be Franciscas, which are one-handed. Nice change to the unit card to give them the Francisca axe head. Obviously, it's long for a Francisca, but still, cool. Unique technologies. One makes it, that's really expensive for a Castle Age one. One thing I should note. Town centers work faster, and when a building is destroyed or a unit is killed, 20% of their cost is returned. Oh, that's why it's expensive. That's cracked. Okay, maybe that's actually fair, given how expensive it is. And then, Missi Dominici. Or maybe Dominici. Castles are cheaper and work faster. Castles can train infantry. Yeah, that's really expensive, but it is kind of returning the old Frank castle discount. That's pretty cool. I don't know. I like that idea. I think that these technologies are a little too expensive, and if they were too strong, I would recommend toning them down slightly in terms of their numbers, as well as toning down their cost, because I think this makes them a little too prohibitive. But I like the idea a lot. Cultural characteristics, sick. They have 2 ensigns, which I think is quite cool as well. And for good little tech tree summary, I'll blitz through it real quick if you wanna look through. Oh, pardon, they only have the one. Campaign Charlemagne, as you would. Possible campaign scenarios, pretty sick. Definitely pause to read this one if you would like. And oh wow, this is quite the final. Is that the idea of the final scenario? Yeah. See next slide in presentation. Wow, that's wild. That's sick, though. Really, really nice amount of detail there. Pretty sick. Concerns, uncertainties. Great. Awesome. We always love when people do that. And with that finishing thought, I conclude my presentation. Thank you for your attention. Our pleasure, Godflesh. Cool build. I quite like it. I really like the idea of narrowing the time window for a lot of these classic civilizations. And I think that this was a perfectly respectable take. Okay, with that, before we jump over to our next topic, I'll check in once again with chat, and then we will talk about industry stuff. And let me message before I do so, let me message my guest to see if he's ready soon. And there you go. A bit earlier than anticipated. Is that good for you? Fine if not. Okay. Take a look at chat. Let's see. Franks should be divided into dynasties. Challenge me. I don't challenge you. I do have an idea on how to make the whole dynastic versus ethnic thing maybe work in a different way in the total overhaul series, but I do think that you need to be a lot more narrow with windows. I would personally call the Franks the Carolingians. And I don't think I'd go so far as to separate Carolingian and Merovingian, but you could tempt me to do so for sure. Just arrived, and hey, religion rework. Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff in that build, and a bunch of them is kind of reminiscent of my own attempt at it, though I would love to revisit that design at some point. Let's see. Scriptorium sounds like it should be a civ bonus rather than a tech. I agree. I think there's ways to tone it up to make it a little more oomphy and exciting. French is a different civilization. Yes, that's the idea behind this particular viewer build, Mockfellow. I would fully agree with that take myself. Don't like the text, too expensive. I would agree. I think they're a little bit too, like, big. And that would be my main critique I would have them, is that I would tone down the numbers if they're overpowered, as well as toning down the costs. Imp Tech is dope. Infantry from Castle. I fully agree. I love that idea. I have ideas for a Clovis campaign, but I should probably write them down. Please do. Clovis is really cool. Time frame for Civ should be narrow. Who is the guest? You will see very shortly. Dionysio says, would it be possible to do Merovingians, Carolingians, French, medieval and French Renaissance? I would go further than that personally, but in that direction, that's kind of what I was looking for. We need Odo. I agree. He's sick. I think there could be an argument for having choose your dynasty and religion while going through ages, like you pick minor gods. That's very similar to the idea I have. Just wait for Total Overhaul episode 50 billion when I can finally talk about it. Well, maybe I'll try to get to it sooner than that. Nice. Awesome. When you're set. All right, our special guest is nearly ready, but something I wanted to briefly introduce the conversation about layoffs about is this article I found from Udonis. I guess I can chuck it into chat in case you guys are at all interested. And reason being, if you want to follow along, it's a lot of numbers. I'm going to be skating through a lot of them. But this was a video game industry layoffs tracker, which is not a fun thing. It's kind of a grungy thing to look at. But I do think it's good for context. Something that might be easy to forget is that this year, thus far, big emphasis on thus far, is a fraction of the layoffs that we saw in 2022 to 2024. So if anything, it might be slowing down. But there are also different reasons behind layoffs. The layoffs that are coming this year seem to have a different motive, especially the Microsoft ones, than some of the ones we've seen previously. And so while there is you could argue a positive trend based on what this like set of numbers says, I don't think it paints the entire picture, and obviously we need to approach it with sobriety. Something that is also important to remember is what segments of the industry are hit when. In 2022 to 2024, Age of Empires 2, from what I remember and saw, wasn't hit that bad by these layoffs. If anything, it felt like it was growing at times. But maybe that is because the motives that are behind this newest round of layoffs are affecting us more uniquely and specifically. Again, we can attribute a lot of that to good old Microsoft, good old MS, multiple sclerosis, my favorite. And so there's pros and cons to this. But just to know, the picture of the industry and the layoffs are not quite, it's not quite like all bad versus all good. And the past couple of years were generally really, really rough. Now, this is a big summary of all the places that have done layoffs and how many and all that stuff. But something to also note is to remember that, again, as this article says, 2024 was the year the dam broke. That's a good way of putting it. And so I wanted to give that as some extra context before we dive into a greater discussion of layoffs, just to make sure we have an idea of what sort of numbers we are looking at. I also will say that these pluses are doing a lot of lifting. Nice. So our special guest, I think, should be good to go pretty much momentarily. Like I said, he is a veteran of the RTS, or not RTS per se, but like the strategy game industry, and also has quite a few ties to AoE 2 specifically. So if you guys have questions for a dev who is in the industry and has seen layoffs firsthand, please do get them ready in chat. Obviously, we'll be able to go over them with him once he is here. In the meantime, do you have any other things you want to discuss or hear our takes on, or like things that you want to bracket our conversation with? If so, fire away over in chat. Pedro says Microsoft was laying off a lot of people last year, though. Microsoft games kind of surviving layoffs this year is neat. Yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to show with these numbers, is that I think it's easy to get frustrated and angry because of what we see happening. And there's very good reasons to do that. But we should also note that the trends don't all point in one direction. Indie devs, heart, fully agree. Oh, in case any of you didn't see the news, Silksong was announced. And I think it's being announced for real this time. It's just like a very a very small bracket to our conversation. Yeah, we actually have a release trailer for Silksong, which is pretty awesome. If you are a Hollow Knight fan, and best of all, it seems to be coming out on September 4th, which is like 2 weeks away. Sick. So yeah, indie game devs, love me indie game devs. And for any of you who, like me, love Hollow Knight, that's going to be quite exciting to see. Let's see. Notice that only the greatest shareholding American devs are struggling. Yes, I would agree with that. We're seeing quite a lot of great progress in the indie space. And also it's good, noteworthy is that a lot of other kind of adjacent industries are experiencing something very similar. For example, in my field, tabletop role-playing games, D&D, while it still holds a hegemony, it isn't nearly as powerful as it was even 4 years ago, before Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast started fucking around and finding out. All right, awesome. Let's begin our call with our special secret guest, who I will say you have seen on this channel before. All right, I will make the call, and we'll make sure we can hear him when he joins. Hello, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, let me turn up your volume. Can you say something again?
I'm a little bit away from the microphone, so maybe now it's better.
Yeah, that is way better. I've been being coy and keeping you a secret. Could you briefly introduce yourself and your relevance to both AoE, like the Age of Empires franchise, and the game dev industry overall?
Oh, that's a lot. Well, hello, I am Chumbbeque maybe. A lot of you may know me better as Hoop Thrower. I have been making mods for Age of Empires for, I'd like to say 15 years, maybe more, if you count me messing around in the Age of Empires 2 scenario editor, but I don't. I worked in the Wars of Liberty mod for Age of Empires 3 for, I don't know, 10 years easily. I left the mod at some point. I worked professionally in the video game industry. I worked in Star Trek Infinite. Don't buy it. For Nimble Giant, I have worked in the tabletop industry as well, as a market consultant for the Latin American market. I do have a lot of knowledge about the game industry. Basically, since I worked in Wars of Liberty and Forgotten Empires, basically hired former modders to work on the game. I do have a lot of contacts inside the company. Like, I communicate with them one-to-one. I sometimes ask for features that get implemented in the game, etc. I have a little bit more knowledge than the average layperson about what's going on inside, although I don't think I can speak that much about it without getting into trouble.
Yeah, we won't ask you to get into trouble. There's no doubt about that. So, given that you are an example of kind of the modder to developer pipeline in action, which in my experience is probably the best way a game studio can actually cultivate talent, the first question I wanted to ask is, I prefaced this conversation by showing a couple numbers on screen that showed that layoffs have been brutal for several years now in the games industry. From 2022 to 2024, we've seen tens of thousands of layoffs. And if anything, 2025 seems to be slowing down in terms of layoffs, but they also could be happening for a different reason. I wanted to know whether that is actually the case on the ground and whether you could give us some more context than what this random article I pulled up was showing.
Okay, so to get the chat up to speed, very briefly, basically the video game industry saw a lot of growth during the pandemic because people were indoors and a lot of people were playing video games because they needed something to do while they couldn't go outside. this attracted a lot of investors who saw the industry going really, really well, doing really, really well. This didn't keep that way, of course. And that meant that a lot of companies who expected record results year after year collapsed overnight. Like there was a really famous case with Embracer, which was trying to do a huge merger. It failed, and Embracer was buying game studios left and right. So they started just firing everybody in those game studios, just closing them. That's how I got laid off, by the way. And
We're so sorry.
yeah,
man. Jeez.
that's mainly the reason why there's been record numbers of people getting fired in 2022, 2023, 2024, and now it's stabilizing somewhat because at some point you run out of people you can fire.
Jeez, it's brutal. So if I can try to like simplify it, you can tell me if I'm wrong here. The industry exploded during the pandemic, realized it was unsustainable, and has been wildly trimming all of the branches that grew in a very haphazard manner.
Exactly. Yes.
Nice. Okay, I mean, not nice. Actually, really shit. But still, I understand now. Another question I have is, we've often heard conversations about AI and AI being used as kind of a justification for replacing developers' jobs. Do you know how true this is, and how much of it is just like spin for investors who are going to be like, oh, AI, and like a bunch of drooling idiots invest based on those two letters alone?
I actually have first-hand experience with that. In
Really?
the
Wow.
last company, yeah, in the last company I worked with before I was laid off, they asked me to design a game using ChatGPT.
Oh, God.
Yes, exactly. Like they sent me like a bunch of prompts. I had to write like a story around it. It didn't make sense. And the senior game designer of the company came to one of our meetings and told us it didn't make sense. And of course, I was to blame because I was the one who was meant to make it make sense.
Oh,
Uh,
God.
yeah,
But
I don't know if you
really?
saw. Yeah,
That's like that's beyond parody almost. That's wild. Okay, so that's actually a thing that's happening in the industry right now of people trying to push AI to that degree.
yeah. I don't know if you saw the news earlier this week that Meta, the Facebook company, is starting to lay off people working on the AI side of things because, and there was another article that was released earlier this week as well that was saying that like 95% of companies trying to work with LLMs, which is these AI things,
Yep.
are failing.
Yeah.
So the bubble is officially bursting.
Yeah, exactly. It's not horrifically dissimilar to the cryptocurrency bubble in my experience. Just
Or
kind of
NFTs.
yeah,
Yeah.
or NFTs. Yeah, just people see something that is exciting and has only like two syllables or less in it, and they pile in, and they put an enormous, unsustainable amount of money into the industry. It ruins everything in its wake, and then it withdraws. So it's like a tsunami slamming into the coastline and sucking away a village in the process. Yeah, it's insane the degree to which it is happening. That's actually really surprising to me.
It's insane to me just to think about the money because during the video game, oh wow, the chips are really going. Anyways, if you think about the like video game bubble, basically there was a lot of money in paper that was invested into the video games, and then it disappeared. That money never existed. Investors just like threw a bunch of theoretical money and then they withdrew it.
Yeah.
It was no one ever saw it.
Yep.
It's not real.
Because they're looking for a bag. They're not looking for like actual long-term investment in a company based on fundamentals. Okay, that is grim, but it is very illuminating. And I would not have known that without you sharing. So thank you very much for that. If it's all right, I did have a bunch of other questions, frankly. And if you guys in chat have others too, please put down your questions for CHUMBEQUE as well. The thing,
Yeah, you go ahead. We are like half an hour earlier than expected. So.
yeah, we got time. I'm trying to keep myself more concise than usual because you know me, I tend to yap. Along those lines, a question that I had for you as well is: do you think that the AI layoffs are a distinct wave from the post-COVID layoffs? Do you think that the two are kind of like seamlessly going one to another? Or do you think that this is kind of the beginning of a new big wave that's going to hit the industry just as the post-COVID layoffs are starting to quiet down?
I fear it's gonna be a new wave.
Yeah, I was kind of scared about that. So the question posed by my stream's thumbnail of should we expect more layoffs, in your opinion, the answer is yes.
I fear so, yes, because I is what people clung to once the pandemic ended and the technology industry in general, well, not software development, more specifically, has been doing really badly these last few years. Like this adage of the saying of, "Oh, just learn to code if you want money." It isn't not true anymore.
Yeah,
It just doesn't. It's not true anymore. People with computer degrees are not finding jobs, and it's gonna get worse from here.
yeah. Well, along those lines, do you have any specific advice or suggestions for people who are in the games industry who love what they do and are reluctant to pivot careers? I from what I understand, that is probably one of the more viable options you could take. But so let's take it two ways. If what advice would you give to someone in those shoes, and what advice would you give to them if they said they absolutely refuse to pivot careers?
Make your own video game. It sounds scary, but you won't gain anything from trying to join a company. Just make your own video game.
Yeah,
Whatever it takes.
absolutely. Have you, based on your experiences and your knowledge of the industry, have you seen the indie space be hit anywhere near as hard, or are we looking at potentially an indie renaissance to replace the ruins?
Things with indies are really different. They experience a lot of drastically different challenges. Like I every year I go to the EVA, which is the an Argentinian video game industry convention, like for professionals, no more than for fans of the industry. Expo de Videojuegos Argentina. That's so. Last year they were talking. I went to a seminar about how to pitch your video game to a distributor, and the advice was basically you will get scammed at some point. Everybody experienced that. You cannot work around it. You will sign a bad contract at some point.
Brutal.
That's the advice they give to like people making indie games.
Wow, that's kind of grim as well. Though something of note that I have experienced on my side of the industry, the tabletop role-playing game side, is distributors in my industry, the people who actually will buy your books and put them into game stores and things like that, are, I'm not going to say scams, but they're not far off. Even the best ones have some of the worst margins, like the worst royalties, you might call it, that you could possibly imagine. And even creators who have wildly successful games that go through distributors can barely make a living off of it. Because of that, something that I've been told quite frequently in my space is to, instead of ever going through a distributor, do everything yourself. Do as much yourself as possible, because it means that you can keep more of the margin. Do all your own shipping, do all your own advertising, do all your own everything, so that you can keep as much margin as possible. How possible is that in the video game industry to like avoid distributors? And just like, I mean, I suppose you have to use like Steam or something like that. I don't know how the margins are on that, but how many other middlemen can you cut out and just do it yourself? And how feasible is it to do so?
That's a good question. Yeah, it's basically what you said. You technically can just go directly to itch.io or Steam and try to publish your game. Trying to like literally distribute your game on your own is insane. But other than that, it's doable in theory. The real question is how are you gonna market it? Because most of the reason people look for distributors or publishers should be the right word is for marketing purposes.
Yep. Absolutely, marketing sucks. I'm in the midst of it right now, and I hate it. But I am learning a lot about it, and something I would recommend to people is crowdfunding is a very powerful tool once you learn how to do it.
And yeah, that's the fun thing too, because even if you go to a publisher, the publisher will frequently ask you to try to do crowdfunding. Sometimes not even because they need the money, but because it attracts more people to guarantee that it's gonna sell.
Exactly. Crowdfunding is effectively an excuse to market, and things like Kickstarter have their own algorithm that if they see your game is picking up traction, they will point more people towards it. So even though, would I love to never have to market anything ever again? Oh yes, I hate marketing, but it is a necessary evil, and learning how to work within it is a useful skill to have. I've learned a lot about Kickstarter, and it's maybe something that if people are interested in, I can talk about down the line, because I do find that even though it has vast problems, right, it is a really great tool for enabling creatives to keep control of their own work and be spared the indignity of distributors in a very big way.
I mean, I imagine that for your side of things, it's gonna be really difficult because you must source the materials, and now there's tariffs, and sometimes things from China don't arrive, and
yep, there's a lot of hoops to jump through, but I have figured out how to do it. And one of the ways that I did it for my stuff, for sourcing books, is I'm using a US based printer. That by itself solves a lot of the issues. Like they're expensive, yeah, but there's way lower risk, and honestly, like the amount I save on doing a lot of things myself means I can splurge on things like higher quality books and stuff like that, which is I think good and is very pro consumer. So being a one man, or maybe not one man. I'm not a one man show, but like an almost one man show, like one man with lots of help show, means that you can kind of put consumer first in a way that distributors will never do. And I'm seeing a lot of indie games doing that as well. Like, I don't know if you play Hollow Knight, but Silksong just got announced, and they built their empire off of one Kickstarter that made 80 grand, I think. Don't quote me on that, but it was less than 100 grand. And now Hollow Knight is one of the most acclaimed video games, especially one of the most acclaimed Metroidvanias of all time. And they probably have enough money to buy a small island with, but they're keeping going. They're using their platform to keep making stuff and keep putting their players first by not squirting out some half-finished pile of dreck just to hit a deadline.
Yeah, oh, what's that? Have you ever heard of Tempest Rising?
Yes, I have heard of Tempest Rising.
It's a really good game that has come used recently. I like to use it as an example because it's closer to us. Yeah, it's a real-time strategy and completely new franchise. It's doing really well. It's selling awesomely, and it's incredible compared to what everything the established like franchises has been releasing lately. Like Company of Heroes 3 was doing really bad. Relic is practically disbanded. Did you see that Dawn of War is not made by Relic anymore? The Total War games are like the numbers are doing really bad.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's really encouraging that a completely new franchise from an indie developer is doing really well. It's made in Unreal. That's Unreal for me. Wow. Yeah, it's like I didn't expect someone would make a real-time strategy game that will perform well in that engine, but they accomplished it. So I don't know. That's my golden goose at this moment.
Oh yeah, absolutely the case. I have some more questions for you, but to briefly check in with chat just to see what people are saying. Could the could fall off of U.S. living standards, probably global as well, be a major component of economic issues too? If your life is not well, one tends to buy less games. I'd say maybe, but you'd have to look at the economy as a whole. And that's not the sort of numbers I have at the moment. I don't know if you have any opinions on that topic, Chumbbeck, but
I blame the tariffs a lot on it as well, because things are getting more expensive because a lot of video games are brought from abroad, and they are getting overpriced at this point. I mean, not overpriced, but more expensive. It's the correct term.
Exactly. Anna says Microsoft specifically did a lot of layoffs because they want to invest more in AI. Yes, that's something we talked about a little bit earlier as well, which is, as Chumbbeque showed in his personal example, in some ways kind of like laughable, but in like a really sad way. Pedro says the crypto broization of the economy has to play a part in the current crisis too. Oh yeah, like NFTs and cryptocurrencies and things like that. There are all these big silly trends that people jump on and absolutely obliterate huge sections of the economy in their wake when people realize they aren't worthwhile. And sure, like maybe there's a place for them. I'm not going to say that none of those things have. Maybe NFTs don't have a place, but I could totally be convinced that some other things like AI and cryptocurrency have a place somewhere in the economy, somewhere in the world, somewhere in life even, but not here. And I'm sure many other people would make the same arguments for segments of the economy that they are more familiar with too. Like for me, tabletop role-playing games. I don't think AI has a single solitary thing that it should be doing in tabletop role-playing games, unless you want to make something about like, oh, I want to make an app game I can play on the toilet where I can like play a tabletop role-playing game with a single, like with an AI, like a solo adventure. Yeah, that's sure. I don't care about that. That sounds fine. But
I hope you have been hiring human artists.
Oh yes, indeed. I can link them indeed, and we don't use AI at any point in our process.
Because that affects tabletop industry as well.
Exactly. Yes, that is where tabletop is being plagued by AI, and there's quite a lot of products being put out now that are using AI. And the worst part about it is a lot of these are actually like not terrible products. And the creator's like, I'm sorry, I didn't know that this was a problem, and it's not good to like universally pillory those behind it, because sometimes they will have like more innocent reasons, and sometimes the innocent reason is like they just couldn't afford it at the time, something like that, or maybe they're using it as a placeholder. Sure, I'm not gonna condemn you universally for something along those lines, but when you're putting out a final product that is based in AI art, I don't know, man, it just makes me not want to buy it. And I think a lot of people are in that direction as well. As Dionisio says in chat, AI is very uncreative, and if you ask it for ideas, it comes up with something extremely lame. And Pedro says MS is trying to put Copilot everywhere. Yes, it's being pushed quite aggressively.
By the very nature of what AI is, it's always going to be derivative. It's never going to be original.
Yeah.
It's not capable.
Yeah, exactly. Something people have been mentioning is Steam, where Steam takes apparently 30%, and you have to pay Valve up front to publish on Steam. Do you know anything about publishing on Steam, Chumbbeque?
Not enough to say something wise about it. So I'll trust those numbers for now.
I would too.
Probably correct.
And something that Pedro says as well before we jump back to topics between you and I is, Robbie, beware to not take the exception as the rule. Not every game and story will be Hollow Knight. Oh yes, absolutely true.
I'm very aware.
Yes, no matter your industry, I would argue, and this is maybe kind of ungenerous of me, right? But I would argue that 95% of all creative output will end up not being worth much. And that's like on a personal level, as well as like on a more broad scale level. That said, even though I'm using Hollow Knight, which is a wild, screaming example, I can also point in my industry to many other indie devs who started with a good idea and enough money to pay for decent looking art, and were able to crowdfund their way into what we will call a middle class job, like a middle class career of being a full-time creative using Kickstarter. And that's the dream. That's something that I think is wonderful and aspirational, and I do believe is achievable, but it's far from easy, and there's going to be a lot of failures along the way.
Yeah, I met indie devs that are artists, so they make their own art. And absolutely can do it. It's just that they don't have any free time at all. It's miserable. Everybody it's almost depressed, I want to say, because you can do it. You can make your own video game and polish it yourself, but you will have to do all the work.
Yep, all of it.
Sometimes sometimes that's really overwhelming.
Yeah, you're playing the lottery in many ways. And it depends. And whenever you pay and you're kind of putting money and time into your work, what you are doing is you're paying for another chance to roll the dice. That's kind of how I look at it. And you just keep paying for the gotcha pawn of the industry until maybe you hit big. Maybe, if you're lucky.
Oh yeah, gacha games is a whole another topic, but I don't know. We'll digress if we start talking about that.
Yeah. Oof. Along those lines, I did have a couple other questions for you based on your industry experience, if that's all right.
Yeah, sure.
Another question I would have is, if you were to meet someone who was wildly passionate about entering the game design space right now, and they were caution to the wind, I'm not changing, I'm not doing anything else besides this, how would you advise them best to go about it? What would be the best things they could do to give themselves a chance of success in this perilous AI-infested industry?
I am not advising you to go to college because I didn't. So that will be very hypocritical for me. But you need to learn the tools at least. Learn to use your game engine of preference. There's Godot, there's Unreal, there's Unity are the three big ones that are used right now. I advise using Godot because it's independent. So it's a lot safer to use. Learn to use Blender at least. It's gonna help you a lot. Even if you don't, even if you are not a professional 3D, even if you don't pivot to that specifically, you're gonna need it. Learn a little bit of UI, like user interface. That's the main issue that hurts most video games, that they never learn it. It's doable, but you will need someone to guide you through the way. Maybe not literally someone. Maybe you will just follow tutorials online. There's a tutorial in YouTube, which is Handmade Hero, if I remember correctly, who's someone who's programming a video game engine with a video game incorporated from the ground up.
Wow.
There's a lot of things you can find and follow if you want to do new things. Just try it. A lot of you're gonna make a lot of really bad video games, but everybody starts somewhere, and even if you make something really simple, it will mean something to someone at some point.
Yeah.
So go ahead. It's like see it less as like a career. It's artistic expression at the end of the day, and artists will forever exist. So if it calls you, go ahead. There's no reason why you should be afraid to like make a video game. Don't expect to become successful. Do it because you want to do art.
Yep, I would agree with that. Something I would also add to that from my experience is one of the most important things you can do, regardless of your place in the career or in the industry and where you want to go with it, is to network. And the best way to network is to either flash money or do favors. If someone thinks that you might pay them, they're way more likely to talk to you. If someone thinks that you might be willing to help them with something for free, they're way more likely to talk to you. And so if you can position yourself in this place where you're like, where you're able to identify people who have valuable skills and information for you, and you can give them what they need to make it worthwhile, they're way more likely to give you the time of day. And frankly, I don't think I'm far to say I'm successful within the tabletop industry. My second Kickstarter isn't out yet. My first one was small, but I feel like I'm more likely to be successful now than I was when I started, almost solely because of the networking that I've done and the people that I've met. I don't know if that's your experience too, but
yeah, hard to agree on that. Like, I don't go outside my house very much. Like, I don't know if chat can tell from my accent, but I'm Chilean. I don't know much about the Chilean video game industry because I worked for an Argentinian company. And as I said, I go to the Expo de Videojuegos Argentina every year because at some point it's just networking. You need to know what's going on in the industry. You need to know what your peers are doing, and your peers need to know what you are doing. So somebody at some point is gonna offer you to work on their project, or they're gonna get really interested in what you are doing, which is something that has happened to me again and again. I wouldn't have gotten here in the first place if it weren't because I knew people inside. Like, I got offered a job at Forgotten Empires. This is not a joke because the former lead developer of Napoleonic Era contacted me asking me if I wanted to work there. That didn't go through. It's not a story for another day. But after that, a local friend who studied professional video game design contacted me because he heard this story. And he said, hey, there's a new company who's hiring people here in Chile. I applied for that one, and that's how I got into the industry. So everything is just networking. You need to know someone if you need to get your feet inside. Even if you are working on your own, if nobody knows you, nobody will play your game. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent way of putting it. Before I jump to the next topic, there is a quick thing in chat as well. First of all, Mockfellow, hear me out. Gotcha mechanics in board games. It's probably doable.
That's called a trading card.
Trading card game. Yeah, indeed. Pedro also has a couple things. He says here in Brazil, a card game called Seven Galaxies used generative AI for images as a temporary measure, and it was the largest complaint for the game. Most people don't want it. Absolutely. Even if you just use it as a temporary measure, it often looks worse. And then something he also says, and after the Oscar cat movie, Blender has absolutely proven it's worth it. I can also confirm that my buddy Arjun, who does the Dharma expansion, he was part of the team for that, and now he's working on another one too. He only recently started using Blender and is now using it to build assets for Age of Empires 3. And he loves the program and highly, highly stands by it. And you're working with Arjun now, if I recall correctly. So,
yes, I didn't know if I should bring it up, but yeah, we are basically bringing the Dharma expansion to Age of Empires 3.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the Jewel of Empires thing. He mentioned that a little while back, and I'm really excited to see what you guys do with it. It's so cool. And also, Pedro also asks, how is the game industry in Argentina? He said he's slightly worried for our hermanos.
That's a really interesting question. The video game industry in Argentina is a lot larger than in Chile. I talked a lot about it with my sister, who's a computer engineer, really with a lot of experience. I don't want to call her old, but she's worked a lot here in Chile. Basically, Chile focused on finance industry. And Argentina focused on the creatives industry. So the video game industry in Argentina is a lot larger than in Chile. Like, they have a lot of success stories. Video games you would have never expected to come from Argentina. Storyteller, for example. Godot was created by Argentinian people. Anyways,
really, wow.
It's been hit by layoffs as everywhere else, but they are finding their footing somewhat. what they were talking about, which was the main topic last year, is that a lot of the AAA industry companies are putting the focus on Argentina because they are bereft of ideas. Everything's been tried, it's not working. They are trying to incorporate cultures or folklore from places that have not been featured as much in video games before. And so there's a lot of video games that are coming that are really themed heavily into Argentinian themes, like 3 or 4 gaucho, whatever video games. You fighting against the devil in the mountains, or Guarani mythology, things like that. There's a lot of games theme about
That's
that.
so cool.
There's a video game about the Argentinian independence, which is turn-based strategy.
That
I'm really
sounds
looking forward to
sick.
that.
I really want to see that.
Yeah, I consulted with the art person for that game to make the Age of 3 mod I was making, because he's probably the person who knows the Argentinian uniforms the best.
Wow. That's really cool. That gives me a lot of hope, frankly.
Yeah,
Sounds like it's kind of a wellspring of new ideas.
basically, yeah.
Yeah. Now, on the topic of kind of more hopeful things and wellsprings of new ideas, something you and I briefly discussed over DM the other day that I'd love to get your take on more thoroughly is the video put out by Age of Noob on him starting his own game studio. I'll play it and mute on the stream so that people can see his handsome face. I'll throw the link to the video in chat because I want to make sure you guys watch it rather than like scamming views off of him, even if it's only a handful. But it was a really interesting video. He wants to put together his own studio and create his own works. And given how many people here are like might be interested in the games industry and maybe what he specifically wants to do, what would you say, based on this video and others besides, is a good way to approach putting together a new studio and trying to fund indie works? Because I think we both agreed that while this was like an exciting thing to see from him, there were things that we had our reservations on and wanted to see more of.
Ooh, that's a really difficult question, and I don't think I'm completely able to give a helpful answer. I've never started a studio on my own, and I'm not the best at like managing big projects. I mean, that's funny because I was a leader of Wars of Liberty. Haha,
Yeah,
but,
I was gonna say you led that one.
yeah, it's a very different monster when you get to actual monetization and
Oh, yeah.
working on your own thing. I think Age of Nova is probably knows what he's doing, but the description of his video game is a little bit vague, which I don't know if it's gonna help him in the long run. Probably he's gonna clarify things more as he's developing things.
Yep.
The people I've met who started their own studios, basically they've always been like close groups of friends who want to make a video game, and they get like enough people to get a minimal viable product. The guy who worked on Fallout New Vegas made a really good speech about this in the EVA 2 years ago. What's George Sawyer, I think it's his name, about how to run a really small team to create a video game. So
A small team. I'm trying to see if I can find it real quick. Unfortunately, I'm not seeing it just yet, but that's fine. I'll try to find it later. Excellent. Okay, so along those lines, I had similar feedback. Like I think Age of Noob is a great content creator. I like his work a lot, and I have faith in his like trustworthiness and fidelity as a person. I would have loved to hear more details about what he specifically wanted to make, because to me, it sounded a little more propositional, like saying, hey, I want to put a team together and I want to hear what you guys want to see us make. And in my experience as a creative who helms projects, I don't find that that's a great strategy. And again, no shade on him. I think he's a great guy, and I really want to see him succeed. But I find that people tend to have an easier time buying into a product or a project that already has a vision behind it. And if you come to them with instead the offer, hey, I want to hear what your vision is. While that sounds like a golden ticket, that sounds like something many creatives would give their eye teeth for, it's like kind of a weird paradox that it's less of a tempting proposition in many ways than to say, I already have this figured out. I know exactly what I'm doing. Here it is. Will you join me? Because yeah, even though I operate at quite a small scale, I do helm like little teams of people who are at this point pretty much entirely volunteers who just really like the stuff that I do and want to help with it. And same thing with the YouTube channel. I'll have viewers like volunteering their time to help me research projects. And I think once you can kind of tap into the combination of vision and gratitude of being like, I know exactly what I want out of this, but I'm also really grateful for your time and I'm going to try to make it up to you as best I can. It's a good, once you can hit that dynamic, it's kind of amazing how many people will rally around you. Is that something, have you ever thought about starting a studio yourself or doing like a solo project of some kind, or is that like well beyond what you have the bandwidth for at the moment?
Bandwidth, but I certainly don't have the money. Like starting my own project, yeah, sure, I do it every other week, but it's just me messing around into computer, maybe getting some prototype of whatever going on. But like trying to publish something and taking it seriously, it's, I don't know, it's really, I mean, I don't know, it's, I want to say it's really expensive, but I've seen people in Argentina throw together video games literally with government netbooks. So a lot of it is maybe just lack of confidence on my part. Yeah, every time I get self-conscious, I start thinking about that. Like I say, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I don't have the budget. Maybe I won't be able to do it. And then I think back about when I was in Argentina and literally saw people doing amazing things on a shoestring budget. There's a really funny group of people who recycle computer parts. Someone made a sort of video game console that worked off a fan.
What?
Yeah, they think that throws air, literally a fan. I don't know how they accomplished it, but it works.
No
if you
way.
will it, you will be able to do it.
Is this like the joke of like running Doom on a microwave?
Basically.
Oh my god, that's ridiculous. Oh god, that's hysterical. Well, if nothing else, I and many others who have seen your work can confirm you definitely have the talent for it. But at the same time, it's something that you have to approach at your own pace because, like you said earlier, you need to look at this industry from a creative lens first rather than from kind of a career lens. You start from the creative lens, and once you have something that you are like wildly passionate about, you can start putting your mind towards the career side of things. Because like things like marketing and team management, stuff like that, they're very important, but they are less important than the core idea that's driving you to, stay up till 2 a.m. working on something.
Yeah, it's basically that you need to have the creative drive. It's confidence at the end of the day.
Something Pedro adds in chat is, I really hope Age of Noob does well. He's been a cool content creator for a while. I hope he doesn't start with an RTS. We're not in the 90s. The difficulty to start with that is hellish. That's an interesting question in the same lines. Do you think that the current cultural landscape is in any way primed for RTSs? Or do you think that would be the sort of thing that an aspiring game dev would need to work towards and start with something a little easier and a little more like marketable?
No, I actually think there is a market for real-time strategy games. The problem is that everybody is trying to make a AAA, big budget real-time strategy games.
Exactly.
And the market's not there for it anymore. But for indie games, they probably will do really well. The problem is that you need a lot of overhead. Again, I suggest consulting with the guy who makes Tempest Rising, Brandon something, but he has his own server called Wayward Strategy. Maybe you will want to link it in chat if you want. Um,
See if I
he knows a lot about how to get a real-time strategy in the real-time strategy game going from the ground up. He said that the most important thing is getting, funnily enough, pathfinding right, because it's really difficult. And you basically need to know your expectations. Like you're not gonna make big money out of it, but it's doable. What else? I know I've been following another project since its inception, which is Cosmonarchy, which is basically this guy Pronogo. He started making StarCraft mods, the original StarCraft Brood War, I don't know, 20 years ago, and at some point he decided, I'm done trying to deal with this outdated engine, which we have no documentation for. I'm gonna make my own video game engine. I started working with this guy from Poland. What is his name? Oh God, Vic. I've talked a lot of time about him when I needed programming help. Anyways, and they started working on their own video game project. They have a really sweeping StarCraft mod at this point called Cosmonarchy, which is basically a sort of prototype for what they are aiming for. So they have 3 factions, but all the units are completely different from what you see in Brood War. And they are doing their own video game engine on a 2-string budget again. Like they are living off donations from their small fan base. Pronogo works part-time on like a convenience store, something like that. Big does like programming, freelancing on his free time, and they're slowly going to accomplish it. Like,
yeah, that's amazing.
Getting there, it's gonna take a lot of time.
Oh yeah,
But they've been working on it for like 10 years, and they're gonna get there eventually.
that's so cool. I threw the Wayward Strategy Discord into chat for anyone who's interested, by the way. But yeah, the idea of using an established game like Brood War as the basis for like a prototype for your own game, I think is brilliant. It's not terribly dissimilar to what I'm doing with Total Overhaul, by the way. And it's kind of a way that we can piggyback off the stuff we love and draw in like a natural audience for the sort of product we might eventually want to put out. And it's one of the natural ways that the kind of modder to developer pipeline always ends up playing out in practice. Something that, oh, thank you very much. This is the Cosmonarchy YouTube channel. I will put it in chat for anyone interested. Thank you, Chumbbeck. Something that Joao just mentioned in chat. How do you feel about Age's future in general? Optimistic, pessimistic, etc. Thank you, Joao. Great to see you as well, my friend. Now, this is kind of an interesting topic, given all the things we've been talking about between layoffs and the indie space and trying to make your own works and things like that. I think, well, I have my answer, but I'd like to hear Chumbbeque's first. Do you have opinions on what you think the future is of the Age franchise writ large, and what you think it's trending towards, positive or negative?
Yeah, I don't want to be mean. I'd love the franchise to keep going, but I don't see it. It's getting really dark in here. I don't like it very much. The last few DLCs, it's really clear they're cutting corners. Like,
Yep.
it's really palpable. It's really blatant. As much as you want to market it otherwise, these variant shifts in Age of Empires 4 are basically them cutting the budget for new building sets or new voice acting and simply releasing half-made civilizations. Feels like a mall. and
Yeah.
that's not a good signal. Let's not even start talking about Age of Empires 2, like the Victors and Vanquish is clearly just recycled Team Workshop content. The last DLC clearly was meant to be two different DLCs. They matched together and not really well. I'm really hesitant about what's coming in the future. Well, the cancelled Age of Empires 3 is the smoking gun, so to say.
Yeah.
That things are not doing really well.
Yep, I don't wildly disagree with you. I think Age of Empires is going to have a fan base for a very long time. But if we're talking about active support for the game, I think it is probably going to be cut. I'm not going to say soon necessarily. I'm not going to say when. But there is definitely a lull in the wild interest and enthusiasm that was seen for the franchise. And I think that if the team has any sense, the thing that they need to prioritize at this point is modding accessibility. Because if they are going to stop delivering content, but they want people to keep caring about the game, even the slightest bit, I mean, it's Microsoft, so probably not. But like, assuming there's people there who have the decision-making power to do such things, we know that there's a huge slew of very passionate devs who are on board the project. The more they can do to prioritize modding, the better the game's longevity will be once, I think, inevitably active support is cut from it. And in the meantime, that doesn't mean we can't enjoy it, because a game that isn't updated is not a game that isn't fun. We can still have our base, we can still have a competitive scene even. Age of Empires 2 was not updated for decades, like maybe not decades, but over a decade comfortably, between 99 and, like 2015, 2012? Forget when HD came out, but there was a huge slew of time it wasn't updated, and yet still the game was played and liked. And if anything, I kind of secretly feel like unless they do a lot to really fix modding support, stopping updating the game might be good for modding, because that way it doesn't break everything every single time a new patch is dropped. So it could. I mean, it would suck for the game to have less money behind it, of course, but I could see it. I don't personally think that it would mean that the game's core community would die, and I don't think it mean that the game would be destroyed. I think it would just kind of fall out of relevancy and kind of return to being a rather niche thing, which is not bad at all. And hey, it still means we can use it as a platform to prototype and test drive some of our own ideas, like what you were talking about with the Cosmonarchy mod for Brood War. Do you think I'm talking shit here? Like, what do you think in this regard?
No, I mostly agree. Like, what was the thing they were talking about in Europe recently? There needs to be an end of life, like support, like plan.
Oh yeah, the Stop Killing Games campaign. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really really important, by the way.
Yeah, I
don't
agree.
know if there's many people in Europe who are hearing this. Yeah, again, using HFPS 3 as an example, they suddenly stopped making patches for the game, and there's a lot of bugs that are still there, like blatantly, like, and a lot of things you can easily fix even with a mod. So there needs to be a plan for when you stop supporting the game, so you can at least make sure the game is meant to be played as intended.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And give people a canvas to add their own creative spins on it with. Because I don't know about you, I would argue that during AoE 2's great dark age, one of the thank you. One of the things that kept it going was modding. I mean, Voobly was a part of it, and the fact that there was like a competitive scene, right? But the fact that there were so many amazing, legendary mods kept this kind of core enfranchised base of like a couple thousand people coming back and wanting more, to the point where eventually some muckety-muck was like, oh, people will still play this shit. Maybe they'll pay for it again. And then we got HD, and then we got DE.
Yeah, like, I don't want it to get to my head, but there's a really valid argument to be made that the only reason a lot of people know about Age of Empires 3 is because of Wars of Liberty.
Yeah, I agree. I think that is absolutely true. Yeah, so that there is hope in summary, even though I think that active support for the game is going down, and will eventually be cut. Pedro says in chat, Salesways, I think it will be stagnant and really hope they start to rethink their business model. I'm starting to get a bit burned out for the sloppy Civ releases. Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah, that's a thing as well. Civilization 7 is so badly. I'm so sad. They hired Sukritakt. He's a really good friend. I'm also active in the Civilization modding community. Oh, maybe I forgot to mention that. And Sukritakt was the most famous modder in the community because he made the 3D, the voiced 3D characters for new civilizations that nobody else tried to do because it was too difficult. They hired him. And then Civilization 7 released and flopped. I feel bad.
Yeah, that's a bummer. But I will say, I did some videos with a guy called Crabstantine about Civilization and was like guessing what was a modded Civ and what wasn't. The level of detail those modders put into those Civs is unbelievable, like how thorough and how polished. They even have some that have like the animated leaders and everything. It's insane.
Yeah, that's Sukritak's work.
That's incredible. Yeah, it's unbelievable. But yeah, so yet another example of where the modding brings the game into a life of its own. I'd argue, especially Civilization 5, from what I have seen and know and understand about it, the mods are like a bigger deal than the game and have been for a while.
Yeah, I mean, most people bring Age of Empires, Civilization 4 as the example, because Civilization 4 has mods that were so big they got incorporated into the game, the later expansions.
Wow, that's insane. That's so cool. Joao says, appreciate both replies, and realistically, support/DLC will be inevitable, which may be good. Yep, I agree.
Like, yep. I love it if they did the same thing they did with like the Command and Conquer games, where they released the source engines.
That would be sick. I'd respect that. That would be that'd be awesome.
They just released the engine and said, do whatever with this. I don't care anymore. Have fun.
Yeah.
Even with StarCraft 2, the game nowadays is maintained by the community. It's a lot more mostly.
Yeah.
15 years ago, when I looked at the game, like even 10 years ago, I said, no, this can't really be modded. There's a lot of limitations. They are not there anymore because they handed the game to the fans.
Yep, that's
like
so respectable.
Blizzard is dead. It's a lot of controversy. Whatever, you take care of this.
Yeah, I think that when you have a company that gives the game to the fans when they're done with it, I think that's wonderful. I will say there's an exception, though, which is when companies, Bethesda, release a game in a terrible state and trust that the fans will fix it. Obviously, that's a little different. But when you can give your game to the fans when it's run its course, I think that's just like one of the most respectable things you can do. Now, the question I have is whether Microsoft will let them do it.
That's a really good question. I have no example, no precedent for this.
Yeah.
So
we don't know. We don't know for sure. But either way, it seems to be a strong possibility. So along those lines, I had one final question for you, kind of prepared, my friend. And again, thank you so much for all of this time and sharing all of these really fantastic insights behind the curtain. But the last question I had for you is, given that you are currently kind of pivoting away from the industry to some degree, what do you think it would take to bring you back to trying to be a full-time game dev? I mean, besides the whole like, someone drops a check in my lap and says, come work for me, right? Like more in terms of what the industry would be looking like, the economy would be looking like, what would you personally want to see in order to feel comfortable going back into the game dev industry?
It's basically I need the right project, right? Like someone working on a real-time strategy game and asking if I want to participate. That's about it, because I like to do the research for like historical units. I like to find contact people to get the voice acting work done, so we can get the languages right. For me to return to the industry, I don't know. Basically, the real-time strategy general needs to China again. So I feel comfortable. Feel like I want to apply again and get in contact again with people working on that and bring something new to the table, right? Again, I have no real trust in the big companies anymore, but there's a lot of interesting like indie developments right now. So basically, I feel like the right project needs to come along. Uh, Again, I don't think things are gonna get better from an industry perspective, but indie developers are gonna be there. Uh, Regardless of circumstances. Probably not even gonna get that much more difficult for them. It's just gonna be different. Once the AI bubble bursts, probably a lot of jobs are gonna open again, just because the people are gonna need to fill a lot of holes that were left behind from doing messes and nonsense. So I'm a little bit hopeful, let's say. That's the best way to put it in perspective.
Sure.
Things are gonna get better at some point.
Yep, I think that's a great way of putting it, and is very similar to my own mindset, and is also a nice kind of uplifting way of bracketing our conversation here. To check in with a couple final chatters before I take my leave from you. Thank you so much for your time, my friend. First of all, from Rex Uchiha, I am scared for AoE overall. This year hasn't been good. 3K disaster, AoE 3 getting axed, AoE 4 having no new civs for 2 years, did have some variants, but still, at least AOM is thriving. I'd kind of argue it's not. Like Chumbbeque and I were saying, I don't know if you were here when we were talking about this, Rex, but we were both saying that we kind of anticipate AoE, like the Age franchise is going to stop getting supported in like the not terribly distant future. But that might even be good, because at that point it will let modders flourish and the game kind of be more community spearheaded, which might allow it to get back to its roots in a way. Sorry, that's like a very brief summary, but hopefully it gets to the right ends. And Godflesh says, if Microsoft stops delivering content to the game, it wouldn't be the worst thing. Exactly, yeah. As long as they continue to support while they promote AoE 2 as a functioning product, then I see no problem. I think even just as long as they keep it playable, as long as they keep the servers up and just like don't mess with it, so that the enfranchised player base can still enjoy it and can do cool stuff with it and can mod it without having their mods break all the time, I think we might actually get to a place where even if not as many newer people are coming into the game and not as many, it's not becoming as big, I think it might get better. But
not even keep the servers up. That's a big topic that was argued during the European video game debacle. You can, if they allow us to open our own servers
oh yeah, of
legally,
course, can have a fan server.
and it's not even that difficult. Like people argue that it's gonna bankrupt companies, but it's not that difficult, and it's not that expensive either.
Yeah, that's great. Well, there's another option then. So as long as Microsoft doesn't get a bee up its ass and decide to do something awful and stupid, and either block us from getting access to the game, or put limitations on it, or even just render it unplayable for some reason, I think we might see a bit of a little renaissance, or maybe a renaissance nestled within a dark age, you might say. Just wait for the new AoE 2 expanded and enhanced edition, says Mockfellow. Oh god. No, I refuse to buy the same game a fourth time. Nice try.
I can totally see it happening for Age of Empires 3 at least, because there's a lot of engine limitations that they implemented for Age of Empires 3. Got stuck with the old version of the engine and it shows.
Yeah, damn it. Well, you never know then. But either way, thank you so much, Chumbbeque, for taking the time and sharing your insights and your experience. I've really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope it's been enjoyable for you too.
Anytime, my friend. I enjoyed it a lot as well. Well, if I think the cat is out of the bag, we are making a big Age of Empires 3 mod with Sharon, with basically trying to create a spiritual successor to Jewel of Empires. No, to what was the name? Karma mod.
Yeah.
Which is called Jewel of Empires. It's taken a long time because we didn't know how to make destructible 3D models. Nobody in the community knew. On the low, nobody in the industry knew. So we had to ask literally everybody around, including the developers. And we found someone in China who doesn't speak English, who reverse engineered the game.
Oh my god.
And now we can do it.
Wow. So you guys can actually make destructible, like destruction animations.
Finally, yes.
That's insane. Holy shit. Okay, and so yeah, if you guys want to see what Chumbbeque is up to, along with my buddy Arjun, who's been a guest before and has helped me with projects, check out Jewel of Empires. I put the Discord in the description. It's an insane project. Like, you guys are shooting for a huge level of quality here.
You can also check my Hoop Thrower YouTube channel, which is where I upload my video modding developments.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'll grab that.
So far, there's only my Argentina and Chile mod. It's not released because, again, we couldn't make destructible buildings. No, we can, but we haven't made them yet.
Yeah.
But that's gonna come relatively soon, I hope.
Absolutely. Okay, for whatever bloody reason, I'm having a rough time finding your channel. Could you link it to me, please? Oh, you already did. Lol. Excuse me. Wow, there I was looking at another screen. Okay. Check out Chumbbeque. Chumbbeque is great and has done some of the most incredible work in the Age franchise. Chumbbeque, thank you so much for taking the time, my friend. You are, as always, very pleasant to talk to, and I look forward to doing again soon.
Thank you very much for your time. Anytime you want me, I'll make the time to be here.
Perfect. Much obliged, my friend. I will see you later.
I see ya.
And there you have it. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to listen to the conversation. I thought that was extremely interesting. Like, it gave me way more insight into what's actually going on in the industry than I had before, especially like how AI is actually being pushed as a potential replacement, which is laughable, and I think will blow up in the faces of the companies doing so. Yeah, if you guys have further thoughts on that topic, I'd love to hear. But more importantly, we're going to start wrapping up pretty soon. So if you have any final topics, any things you want to hear me yap about, fire them away in chat. I am happy to do so. Let's see what else we have. Oh, yes. Godflesh says, I'm still worried if they try to revive AoE 2 as an esports, the focus of competitive gameplay. It's not good to cater to only competitive players. It would be the TF2 debacle all over again. Of course, I don't think Microsoft would be too dumb as Valve was when handling their own IPs. I don't know, Microsoft's pretty dumb with their own IPs. But I agree. I have said for a while that I think that focusing on esports as the primary balance and development focus of a project is a wild mistake. Esports is important. I like esports. I used to watch AoE 2 esports a lot. But I don't think it's a coincidence that I personally stopped being interested in AoE 2 esports when they started pushing it. It was kind of more fun when the pros were trying to work with with kind of a very under-optimized game for esports. I thought that was really cool. And in my experience, the more a game tries to push esports, the less interesting the esports scene is. Not universally, but as a general rule, I would make that argument. Maybe you guys think otherwise, though. Let's see. Rex says, honestly, it's interesting to see what will happen if one day AoE 2 will stop getting support. Modders might go ham, making new civs. Yeah, exactly. I think as long as we can remove the civ cap, if on the way out, the devs are like, oh yeah, and we removed the civ cap for you. Here you go. Ha, mwah. Beautiful. I would be thrilled by that. Well, we'll see if that happens, though. Yeah. Any other thoughts for you guys? I hope this has been from you guys. I hope this has been an interesting topic today, talking about games industry, talking about Age of Noob. We had that build from Godflesh earlier, which was awesome as well. Yeah, I hope there's been an interesting set of conversations. Any final questions before we sign off? Godflesh says everything should be balanced. Everyone should get the opportunity to enjoy the game however they want. I would agree with that too. Obviously, it's impossible to give everyone everything all at once, but I think that you can pick and choose your battles. And you can try to... There are certain things that are more important to prioritize than others. In my experience, the casual single-player audience is the biggest part of the RTS base and the biggest source of money. And so if you're just being like raw economics about it, they are the most important people to make happy. Then probably the competitive like ladder folks are the next most. Then probably the esports most. But you can't forget the modders. I think the modders might even be like second most important in that equation as well. So there's a whole bunch of different like sets that you need to look at. And as long as you're not actively dumping on one of those groups, I think you're probably good. All right, guys. In that case, I say we sign off. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your Sunday to watch. It's been a pleasure getting to chat with you. I hope you've enjoyed the recent fruits of the channel. I've been trying to put out a little bit more content, even though I, again, have this big Kickstarter coming up. Once again, please do check out Enclave if you have any interest whatsoever in tabletop role-playing games. It is a game that I care quite a lot about, and it's going to be launching in September. September 23rd specifically. So if out of nowhere I'm not posting as much during like the months of September, October, that's why. But don't worry, I do still have a couple of big projects lined up for you, and one enormous one scheduled for September. Absolutely enormous. That has been about a year in the making, so I hope you're excited for that one. Godflesh says modders are future game developers. Indeed. I think that's kind of a good way of summarizing our conversation today. When you prioritize modders, it allows you to make the game wildly better for free, or functionally for free, in a way that it will be almost impossible to do, especially economically do, with game devs in general. Thank you guys so much for your time. It's been a pleasure. And as always, my name is Robbie Howell. Huge round of applause to CHUMBEQUE for joining us. And ciao for now.